Hi, and welcome to Z Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Z Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
Produced live at 4ZZZ Studios, you might be listening to us on 102.1 FM in Brisbane, on Z Digital, or around the country on the Community Radio Network. This is Z Games, I'm Jack, and I'm here with Ray. How you going?
Hey, very well, thanks, Jack.
We got it's definitely a show coming up. We don't have traditional news, traditional reviews, so we're just kind of making it up as we go.
Yeah.
Just freeball it. Let's see what happens.
Totally unlike how we do the show normally.
It's always... It's professional radio is all we do. It's very tight. It's everything about it is perfect.
Yes.
And this is going to be perfect in a different way.
Yeah. Well, you hear a show like the new releases show, which we've just heard from 5 till 6, produced by Chris Copcroft, the master.
Beautiful.
His show is so tight. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's hard to follow, honestly. And it's a very highly produced show. And we endeavour to have that sort of production here at Z Games.
That level of difficult to keep up withness.
Yeah. So listen over the next hour and see what happens.
It's gonna fly. I mean, it's at this point, it's already flown off the rails. The one thing when you walked into the studio was like, I want to talk about this, and it was Fortnite, which is definitely not a sentence that anyone else has ever said in the history of video games ever. That's a joke. Everyone's talking about Fortnite. No one can shut up talking about it.
Well, it's a hot topic right now, not just among gamers, but among the general population. People are excited about it, or they're worried about it, or they hate it, or they're sick of it.
There's a lot of angles. We'll start with the first thing that you want to talk about, which was the fun PS4 Switch lockout situation.
Yes.
The context there is that essentially PS4, if you've logged into your Epic account on a PlayStation 4 playing Fortnite, you can't actually log into that same Epic account, which is third party, on Switch.
Yes.
Why would people be angry about that, Ray?
Why? A lot of reasons. Because people who play Fortnite play a lot of Fortnite. And as you play Fortnite, you accrue currency which you use to buy cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
Like, new moves, dance moves are popular.
Yeah.
Clothing is popular. Skins for whatever things you got are popular. And when you're migrating to a new platform, every other platform, it's fine. You can just log in using your Epic account and you've got all that stuff ready to go. If you're going from Xbox to Switch, or if you're playing from Android to
you can
iPhone.
Play on it's like iPhone, PC, Xbox. All of those are definitely fine.
Yeah.
And then if you play on PS4, that immediately throws like a wrench in the works.
Absolutely.
And you can't log into that same Epic account, which is third party, on Switch. And like Nintendo actually haven't said that they've reached out to Sony. Like they've taken a very hands-off approach.
Yes.
Because I believe it was Reggie Fils-Aimé was interviewed on Fox Business recently, and they were like, "Hey, so have you hit up Sony?" And they're like, I'm going to professionally dodge that question, of course.
Yeah. Look, it's great for everyone else apart from Sony, because they get to sit back and be like, we're not the bad guy. Sony is. Because Sony is the one player in this scenario that's not playing with everyone else.
They've been dodging the question as well, because Sony, I'm not sure if any specific sort of bigwigs in Sony Computer Entertainment have been asked the question, sort of in the flesh, like in video interviews at E3 or whatever else. But all of the responses that we've gotten from Sony are basically, we're not going to acknowledge this problem, while the entire internet is screaming that they want this to be fixed.
Yeah, it's kind of crappy because we're kind of reaching an age where a lot of developers want to have this this cross-platform sort of environment where people who love Rocket League can play against each other, whether they're on Xbox or PlayStation.
Yeah.
And even Epic, it seems, the creators of Fortnite are willing to have this environment as well.
The video game utopia, where it doesn't matter what you're playing on, you can play with everyone all the time.
Yeah, and it just really sucks that Sony is put a stone wall up. And we have had, while we have had no official word from Sony, we have heard from some developers that were at Sony, formerly at Sony Online Entertainment,
yes,
I think.
That's right.
Some of those guys have just had a little sneaky comment
Money.
via Twitter behind Sony's back. Yeah, and they say that it's financially motivated, which isn't surprising at all.
No.
But apparently the higher-ups at Sony just can't stand the idea of someone buying a skin on Xbox and then coming over to PlayStation and using that same skin. It just doesn't appeal to them. Even though it's not a big deal at all, it just seems super greedy.
There's a few things, because I guess a little bit more context, the reason why Sony kind of is in a position where they can be so greedy is because they've sold like 70 million PS4s or something insane at this point. And the competition, you're looking at like 30 million Xbox Ones globally, about 17 million Switches. So like, if you go by numbers, there are probably more people that are playing on just like PS4 or just PS4 on their phone or whatever, and could not care less. It's just sort of this like enthusiast audience, I feel, that might be hanging out on like forums or whatever else on IGN or GameSpot or whatever else that are neck deep and like, this is insane, this is ridiculous. People that will buy more than one console, because I feel like I have to remind myself that that's not normal.
Yeah,
not everyone will have an Xbox and PS4 and Switch. Like,
that's absolutely right. So a lot of people do have PlayStation 4s, and unfortunately, it seems that whenever you have a company that has a monopoly on something, customer goodwill is something that just disappears on their end. You see, like Microsoft, who have been chasing Sony in sales for this generation for the next
since
last
2013,
4 years. Yeah, and you see them like sort of bending over backwards to make everyone happy, doing all of these really customer-friendly policies.
Like Xbox Play Anywhere, Xbox Game Pass, Xbox One S and X.
Yeah, the backwards compatibility thing that they've been doing. So they've been really great this gen. And Sony, it just seems happy to sit at the top and laugh
on their pile of
and
money.
Be like, "Oh, you want a bone, do you?" Oh, that's funny. No,
maybe just purchase PlayStation now, and maybe we'll just chuck a sideways glance at you and see if we feel up to it.
But here's the thing: like Fortnite is becoming such a phenomenon now. I mean, they've got 40 million players across all platforms, and that's a force to be reckoned with. That's a lot of people who could potentially be angry at Sony, and I think they got to take that into consideration now.
You'd almost think that Epic would be in a position where they could leverage their status to try and combat the problem.
I'm sure they're in a dialogue with Sony right now.
I hope so.
Yeah. So we'll see what comes of that. But right now, Sony are pretty much being the bad guys. Yeah.
Well, they're just being the money bags. That's all it is.
But let's move on to the second topic
thing, which
about
is
Fortnite, which is the moral outrage.
It's rotting your kids' brains.
We're experiencing right now.
Thanks today.
Yeah, I mean, like whenever any game becomes popular, we see it in the mainstream media. Once the people that make those morning TV shows and the afternoon
like
TV
GTA
shows,
has come up in the news like enough times, and
they, you start seeing these anti-Fortnite stories now, and I don't know, we've seen it a lot before in the past. It's nothing new.
No.
For example, even just last year with Pokemon Go, a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
And to be fair, people were like walking off cliffs while they had the Pokemon Go app open, so that's like legitimate concern.
That's an actual problem. Maybe fix that.
Yeah.
But Fortnite isn't really like the thing that I'm seeing people latch onto, like mainstream media outlets, is that there are a lot of people playing it and then just trying to spin that into a negative story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With no grounds to do that on.
Well, there's the thing where the game is itself. It's based on conflict, it's people who are fighting each other.
Yeah.
And then there's the sort of, because the game is such a high quality and because it has that Moorish sort of feeling, like you just want to keep playing, people are concerned about the amount of time that is being wasted by their children or their friends.
So it's not so much they're concerned with what Fortnite does in particular, it's just the fact that Fortnite is just, it's being played so much.
Yeah.
That's what it's coming down to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Grand Theft Auto where you could look at that game as an outsider and be like, okay, what morals are these sort of instilling in people?
Why am I paying a hooker and then getting services from said hooker and then killing it?
Yeah.
Like, that's a problem.
Yeah, like
Fortnite doesn't necessarily have those same cultural, society-related, like, commentary issues, I guess.
I mean, it's just basically like the cast from Frozen jumping around a green wonderland, shooting each other with Nerf cannons.
You're painting a picture in my head, Ray. This is the cast of Frozen. It just gets really, really wacky and weird. I mean, if you pay for enough microtransactions, you probably get to that stage, I imagine.
Yeah. So look, I mean, it is sad to see that the mainstream media are attacking these things, but I think, next month it'll be Pokemon again. Next year it's going to be Red Dead Redemption. I mean, it's nothing new.
I mean, this year it's going to be Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Red Dead, it's not going to be delayed. It might be delayed again. Red Dead, Blops 4. What are the other big games coming out later?
Oh, yeah, there's heaps.
I feel like it's just those two. Super Mario, Assassin's Creed, Odyssey. That beautiful
Have
game.
you ever played a game to the point where you have to stop yourself and wonder, hey, am I playing too much? Is this becoming a problem?
It gets... Fortunately, within the scope of a short time frame. So yes, the most recent one I can recall is Rocket League. When that came out, I was very, very involved with that game for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I would get quite intense. I would be like, I've got to get home, got to play more like Rocket League. I was really, really into it when it came out. But that really only lasted a few weeks because then I got distracted by some of the game, I guess. So I haven't been affected to that extent negatively by games. Like that, there's been a lot of, since the mainstream media has been sort of spinning a negative story about like how Fortnite and games like that can kind of affect your life negatively, and there's been I think the World Health Organization has been like, we're going to define video game addiction. That's been a fun topic that's come up recently. There's been a lot of discussion within sort of video game industry circles that I've seen about like what positive change has video games brought to your life. And I mean, from our perspective, a radio show for a start, like we've got this is a pretty good place to be because of video games. So I don't think that it necessarily needs, like, we need to approach these topics seriously, like take them seriously, and if there are genuine concerns about how it's affecting your health, then that needs to be something that needs to be looked into. But I think the social aspects of games is something that really isn't discussed or represented in a positive way in mainstream media. It always comes back to like Fortnite. You're spending a lot of time in it. How much damage is that doing to your kids? When the story could be, you're spending a lot of time in it. You might be pursuing opportunities for social interaction that otherwise wouldn't be possible if you're not in the same room, country. You know, like if timetables are difficult or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
Like, just make this story a little bit better, a little bit more positive.
That's true. I don't think it's as much of a black and white issue as a lot of people think it is. It's not the fact that, video games are bad, okay. It's more like everything's bad if you don't use moderation.
Yeah.
I mean, if your child is addicted to academic excellence, that's great. That's fantastic. If your kid's addicted to Fortnite, that's not as good.
Well, it depends on the like how addicted, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the magnitude that you need to be looking into.
But even academic excellence can be harmful.
Yeah, that can affect your social. Well, it can be.
What if you went through life and you didn't make a single friend? Would that be bad? Yes, I say.
This is groundbreaking social commentary that you've got here, Ray. Jesus Christ.
Just my opinion, man.
Oh my god. You're listening to Z Games. I just got back from Japan and I bought a bunch of anime like soundtrack CDs, which is fun.
Yeah. Did you have a good time over there?
I had a really good time over there.
Because you're such a weeb, is it like paradise?
Oh.
Is it like returning to, I don't know, Mecca or something for weebs?
Returning to the motherland, yeah. There were definitely moments of that, but at the same time it felt kind of overwhelming sometimes. Akihabara and Nakano Broadway, which were the sort of two big, I guess, nerd meccas. I went to Akihabara twice, and I spent almost an entire day in Nakano Broadway, and it got to a certain stage where I felt out of my depth as someone who has been playing games and watching anime and like doing nerd stuff for most of their life. I felt like I wasn't completely on the level with everything else that was happening there, because Japan can be very much in its own kind of bubble. As far as a lot of the games and a lot of the culture over there, we don't see, like, we see stuff like Persona and Final Fantasy, but we don't see as much as what they have on offer, because not everything gets localized and whatever else. So, it was a lot to keep up with, but I ended up buying way too much stuff, like stuff that I can't even play here because it's region locked. Yeah. Like I found some... secondhand stores are dangerous. If you're going to go to Japan, secondhand stores are so dangerous because you just see something, you're like, 200 yen, yeah, that sounds good. I got like PSP games for like 200 yen. I got 360 special editions for like 500 yen. Okay. And these are not like stuff that you might see in like like a games retailer here, right?
Absolutely not.
Secondhand, and like you expect secondhand to be kind of like a little bit beaten up.
Did you venture into any like gaming retail stores that weren't secondhand shops, like their
Yes.
equivalent of EB or what JBs or?
I don't even know if they have something like on the same level as that. Because when you think about gaming retail, it really is like those two stores in Australia. Over there were just so many different stores that I went to, and none of them were under the one brand.
Right.
Like some of them were, I believe Trader was one that had like multiple stores around the Tokyo area.
Yeah.
But
I noticed here in Australia, you can't get PS Vita games anymore. You can't get PSP games.
yes.
You can still kind of get Nintendo DS games,
Yeah.
but they're not really. And Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, you see a bunch of them in like the used pile up the back. But in Japan, how is it? Is it the same as here, or is it different?
It's so different. Like there are special edition like older PS3s that they have, like so many PS2s and PS1s. Like we found a Dreamcast for $20. I bought a DS Lite for $15. Like it's ridiculous, and the amount of games they have on offer, most of it, there's nothing for me to really like as far as the older stuff. If you go back to like Super Nintendo and PS1 in particular, PS1 and PS2, there's a lot of weird weeb stuff that never made the jump over to Western regions. A lot of visual novels and dating sims I found, which I was rather frustrated about because I always love eating that stuff up. But yeah, like they still have, I'm not sure if it's new, but they have of like so many PS1 games and PS2 games, PSP, Vita, stuff on like Dreamcast,
so they're still selling
DS.
all of those games.
I got like a pile of Game Boy Advance games that were still in shrink wrap. Like it's insane.
I heard that the Xbox 360 just was not a thing in Japan.
Correct.
Like they just didn't accept it.
Yes.
Is it the same with the Xbox One? Do you find those games, or is it a non-thing?
Like they are there on like a yes or no scale, but as far as how much attention they get, nowhere near as much as like PS3 or PS4.
So it's all about Sony and Nintendo products.
Yeah,
over there.
definitely.
Yeah.
Like there's still a lot of attention on PS Vita in Japan. Huge amounts of attention there. So you've still got like a lot of new releases for Japan coming out on Vita, and it's really easy to find a PS Vita console, like the first or second revision, find Vita memory cards, which are basically impossible to find here. Like it's so easy to find that stuff. Get on to PSN, download games onto your new 32 gig memory stick. They're still kind of expensive compared to SD cards, but you can find one for a reasonable price that has been like gouged up beyond recognition. Yeah, it's such a different vibe, and the Xbox games in particular, because I found some original Xbox and Xbox 360. It's weird that they are, like there's enough of them to be floating around in like secondhand stores, like special editions. Like I found Fable 3 limited edition and Halo 3 limited edition and Perfect Dark Zero. Those were the three ones on 360 that I found that were Japanese 360 games. Why on earth were there enough made of those that they are still in secondhand stores? It's just because, as like everyone knows, no one in Japan cares about Xbox.
Yeah,
never has, probably never will.
That's
weird.
interesting.
Yeah.
I heard it's because I don't know if this is like the real reason, but this is what I read somewhere.
Reputable.
It's because Bill Gates went over to launch the Xbox personally. He did a big presentation.
Yeah,
but when he did it, he was being all salesman-like about it. Like he was pitching them, like, "Hey, this is why Xbox is great. This is why you should buy Xbox." And apparently, the Japanese people didn't like that sort of self-assured bravado. They're more used to people being kind of more not timid, but like a bit more reserved when they're trying to make a pitch.
Yes.
You know, like it's more polite or something.
I can appreciate why that might be sort of a position for them to take. You say they like the Japanese audience doesn't really like that idea of someone being so headstrong, I suppose.
Yeah.
You say that, but Ken Kutaragi, who had worked on the PS3, had this perfect quote that will go down in history. It is, "I want people to want a PlayStation 3," because you recall how expensive they were when they came out.
Oh yeah, like $1,000.
Like $1,000 in Australia. It was insane. I want people to want a PS3 so bad, they will get a second job or they will work longer hours. It is insane that an executive at a company like Sony said, "You're going to work longer to get this thing."
He went on the public record saying
Yes.
that? Wow.
Yes.
That's
That's right.
sucks.
That's a stance to me.
Yeah.
I think the reason why the audience didn't really get on board with, or the Japanese audience didn't get on board with Xbox quite as much, was because Sony is a Japanese company.
Yeah.
Nintendo is a Japanese company. Xbox is not. Xbox, at the very beginning, didn't really have an appreciation of what makes companies or what makes the games successful in Japan. And they had a few experiments. They kind of tried stuff out, but it didn't really hit the mark. And that just kind of plagued them through Xbox Original, into 360, into Xbox One.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to shake, all of the lead that Nintendo and Sony have had over the years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's difficult to shake lead no matter where you are, right? Like, the PS4 was out the door internationally. It had a massive lead on Xbox One.
Yeah.
Right? And that has maintained over the last 4 years.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Japanese stuff, we were just listening to songs taken from the soundtrack to Persona 3 Dancing Moon Night. Now, that's an upcoming game.
Yes, so the English name is going to be Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight. It is essentially a rhythm game that you are playing through songs, through areas as characters from Persona 3 and Persona 5. There was originally a Persona 4 version, which was Persona 4...
Dancing All Night?
Dancing All Night, yeah, that's what it was called. And that was just on Vita, I think, at least locally. It might have been released on PS4 in Japan. Persona 3 and 5 are getting the dancing treatment locally as well, and that'll be happening sometime next year. I actually bought a copy of that, but I haven't booted it up yet. So let's see if I can trip through the Japanese menus to get into the game properly.
Now, I've got to ask you about the gender politics within the Persona series.
Yes.
So, Persona 4, which is my favorite Persona game.
Yes.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It's a social simulator mixed with a dungeon crawler.
It's what you wish you had done in high school.
Yeah. So you're a high school student. You sort of be dropped into this sleepy local rural area.
Definitely.
And you've got to sort of start up a new life there. So you're with your uncle or your dad's mate or something, and he's put you up. And you've got to go to school and make new friends and things like that. And you actually have to go around and do all that stuff. You've got to go to class. You've got to choose who to speak to, choose how you're going to spend your time, what hobbies you're going to do, what extracurricular activities you're going to do.
These are all genuine concerns that you have in actual life.
Yeah, and you build up the relationships, and there's this mystery that sort of develops as the game goes on, and it's that someone's abducting people and pulling them into this...
Into the
TV world, into the supernatural, other upside-down like world, and murdering them. And so you and your friends have to do a Scooby-Doo, Buffy the Vampire.
Yeah, it is very much Scooby-Doo, that's right.
They get a little gang together and they go out investigating it. It's really fun, it's really cool. You've got the secret life that you're balancing with your mundane life, and which is actually a really sort of picture-perfect recreation of what it would be like to live in a rural Japanese area, because you've got all the references and all that stuff. And it's very immersive and it's very cool. However... there's just one big problem I've got with the game. Yeah. And that is the fact...
We have a few problems, but there's one big one.
There's one big one, yeah. So, basically, all of the characters have to face their shadow selves. And so they have to go in and they do the dungeon, and at the end, it's their counterpart, the evil counterpart, and they have to defeat that person to sort of, to get onto the next stage of the game. For example, the shy girl who's the daughter of an innkeeper and things like that.
I can't remember her name.
Yukiko. She's got a wild side that she has to sort of defeat and reconcile that within herself, right? And then you've got the teen idol that is really confident on the surface and very outgoing, but has this kind of shy, sensitive side that she hasn't really come to terms with. And so you have to defeat that in order to progress. Now, there's this one character called Crinji who's a biker, and he's really tough. He's badass. He insults people. He's got a really tough exterior, but he has a kind of very feminine, verging on sort of homoerotic tendencies.
Yeah, I got the gay lisp and sort of the works when this is when he sort of confronts his shadow self, and this sort of alter ego character comes across as very, very flamboyant and expressive.
Camp.
Camp
And that is sort of a kind of offensive in itself. But it was a really good opportunity to have him reconcile his sexuality with himself.
Yeah.
And because all of the other characters, they face their shadow self, and then the game sort of says that it's okay.
That's meaningful. That's meaningful character development.
To have a duality to your character, and it's okay if you're supposed to be confident that to have a shy side or even introvert, you can have an extroverted personality. But Kanji never gets that reconciliation. He rejects the notion that his other self, his homosexual side, could be actually a part of him, and the game kind of treats it as a joke from then on.
Yeah, it's like a running gag from then on.
Yeah, it's like, haha, Kanji's gay.
Yeah. That's the punchline.
And it was such a really good opportunity, and it really sticks out because the rest of the other characters get to have that resolution. So yeah, that's the big problem with that game.
I never got far enough into Persona 4 to actually experience that myself, sort of like in the flesh, to be able to see those characters develop to the point where you really do develop that sense of connection with them, because I did that a little bit more so in Persona 3 and in Persona 5, but Persona 4 kind of got past me. I think it's, when you're talking about sort of games as a product of culture, you need to think about the context in a big way. And if you think about sort of queer representation in games or just in media across the board, it's kind of difficult to think back 10 years to 2008. Was it 2008 when that came out? Yeah. 10 years ago, it was a very, very different sort of landscape, I think, cultural landscape. And it stuck out then, and it still sticks out now for different reasons. Then it was like, oh, wow, there's a gay character. Whereas now it's like, wow, they didn't give it the attention it deserved, I think, as a topic within the context of the game. And you can sort of read a little bit more into this, and I definitely recommend you do, going online and hearing people like Troy Baker, who had voiced Kanji in the US release, how they had kind of approached this, because Atlas JP had never actually acknowledged that he was actually gay. They never admitted that. They were like, oh, well, we'll leave it up to your sort of imagination. It's hard not to think that when they're quite so sort of deliberate about making his alter ego character like that. But yeah, thinking back 10 years, it was an interesting sort of stumble, I think, early on as far as social issues in games. 10 years ago, that didn't really exist. Games were games, and the social issues and the political commentary that we see so much in the industry now wasn't really there. Yeah, there was very much like a church and state wall. Whereas now that it's sort of everything's a grey area. Yeah, I think that's a lot more fun to sort of traverse as someone experiencing games and listening to games coverage online. Hopefully on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM or on the Community Radio Network through Z Games. But I don't know. I just find that really exciting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right? Well, a lot of ground has been broken, especially over the last 5 or so years, by independent game developers who use games as a form of self-expression to sort of make comments or to that say something about
like
social issues.
What is the commentary?
Yep, commentary.
That's the word.
That's right.
Beautiful.
And I think we're in a position now where we might see like the big game developers follow suit and make some commentary.
Well, I mean, The Last of Us Part 2's come out, and they've got gays there, right? I forgot her name because I haven't played The Last of Us Part 1. Ellie.
Yeah.
And then I think Ubisoft have come out with some of their games, and they're like, hey, you can, I think it's Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and they're like, you have the opportunity to pursue male and female characters in the game, regardless of your gender.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Might have been someone, like another game in Ubisoft's bag, but yeah, I think that we're seeing those opportunities come more and more to the forefront. We're still not great on stuff like female leads in games, because every single time, if you look into the numbers, it's quite upsetting. Yeah. It's not great, but it's an ongoing thing, right?
It is, but I think, it is inching closer to a place where I think it's going to be good, which is ideally a place where anyone can pick up a game and just feel like that game is for them. I mean, there's always going to be games that are targeted for different demographics, but, going back 20, 30 years when all games were for straight white,
like sort of through the early mid 90s that kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean it would be great for everyone to play a game and at least not feel like they're
So
being
alienated.
excluded or
Yeah.
alienated or targeted or being the butt of a joke. So
Yeah.
I think it's good that we're having this conversation. I
Yeah.
think it's good that it's happening within the media as well.
It's very important. And I wish we could keep having this conversation, Ray. I feel like I'm lying down on the couch telling you about my childhood, kicking my feet up on the desk.
We can do that afterwards.
We won't actually do that, sure. Hopefully I'm not paying you an hourly rate for that. But that's pretty much all we have time for this week on the show. Thank you so much for hanging out. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Bye.